I'm Claire Hodge, 2019 Nuffield Scholar. I'm really pleased to be invited to share my experience at this Highland Show event because it was a reception at the Highland Show in 2018 that gave me the encouragement and confidence to apply for my Nuffield Scholarship. My personal study was on potatoes, and my world had been predominantly potatoes in my career since I'd finished uni. And this gave me an opportunity to look at the broader picture of global potatoes. However, today I'm going to talk about my experience of the Nuffield Global Focus Programme, which was slightly different, and I'm going to share this with you. What is a Global Focus Programme, you will probably ask? It's an extension to your personal study. You take your topic and you study that, but the Global Focus Programme was an opportunity for me to step out of potatoes for 6 weeks and think about agriculture as a global picture, looking at farming, food, the environment, and also the politics that go behind that. And this was a really great opportunity for me. So what does this look like? 6 weeks with 10 people from all around the world. And this is what really makes the story of the Global Focus Programme. We had people from Australia, first generation poultry farmers. We had myself, the person who was going to ask the questions about potatoes. Duncan, who was looking from the UK, looking at dairy nutrition. Then we had Enrique, who was a crop spray technician. Hamish, who's looking at agricultural communities in New Zealand. Then we had Frank, a forester. Ellen looking at climate change. Ailish again looking at dairy in Ireland. And Joanna looking at soil improvement. And Ingrid looking at cooperatives. And we maybe ask, why does this matter? But we as a team travelled through 3 continents around the world and asked all the questions that we felt were pertinent. And you start to understand that why do issues in Western Australia matter to me in Scotland? Or why would I learn anything from forestry in Australia? It made me open my mind to different ways of looking at things. What questions wasn't I asking when I was going to meet people as I did my study? And it was great fun. It was absolutely incredible. So much fun to start to challenge ideas, challenge each other. It was excruciating, but incredible. And these people, the questions that they ask, the ideas that they came up with, come to me every single day. You think about how would this affect this and what would that happen with that. So these people absolutely made this trip. And this is how you gel together as you travel around over the 6 weeks. Where did I get to go? Countries that I would never imagined going to, and ones which didn't have much of a connection to potatoes, which made me then think about different opportunities, different ideas, and how can I bring that back to farmers that I work with in Scotland. So the exciting bit of where do you get to go to? So I started my travels in Singapore, where we met banks and cooperatives, spray companies, big global corporate companies in the middle of the city. Then we travelled up to Manila, where we went to the rice paddies in the Philippines, and we got to actually plough the fields with an ox. Up then to Hong Kong, and it was a really volatile time while we were there, and riots started. So we had to negotiate through riots, understand where was safe to go to and what was going on in a country, which was really changing its politics and changing its position in the world at that time. Then we hop over to Shanghai, Shandong, Inner Mongolia, and Beijing in China. A lot of the time we looked at dairies and understanding what was happening in trades and markets and how we can open those up and how that impacted different countries, especially when we were traveling with people from Australia and New Zealand who really switched on to what's happening around the world. And also understanding the culture of business across there was fascinating. Then we pop over to Berlin, Amsterdam, Dublin, and Galway, our European part of our travels. This for me, I thought was perhaps not going to be particularly interesting because you know it all when it's your home, it's what you know. But actually, it was a real eye-opener to learn what others asked and what they wanted to understand about the differences of our approach to agriculture, food production, and the environment. So that was it. That was certainly an eye-opener and one that I would never forget. Then we dash over to Washington, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin, understanding that American market, that position. How do they react at this point? They were experiencing the trade war between China and America, which obviously still hangs over now, but we were really in the crux of it and understanding how that impacted farmers in America We met like cotton farmers in Dallas. We met with senators in Washington, D.C. We really did pack in every single element of farming that we could find, and it was amazing. So 3 continents, what did we learn? What did we understand? And I think the biggest thing that we've understood was that they might look different, they might have slightly different approaches to food production and understanding the environment, but often the challenges were very similar. People wanted to do a good job, they wanted to connect to their customer, and they wanted to produce a product that was valued. Another challenge that we really felt when we were in China is the food security picture and how important that is to them. China needs to feed 22% of the world's population, but with only 7% of the world's land. That was a real eye-opener, and that starts to understand why they're trying to build connections with people around the world and why these are long-established connections that they need, not just short-term market dumping. And that became very apparent when we visited dairies that were connected to businesses in New Zealand, and understanding how the dynamics of those relationships work and how important it is for the future of people of China. Then the sobering bit of coming back to Europe and thinking about what the position of, for us is in Europe as working in agriculture, and the realization of that a big proportion of the European funding goes into agriculture and supports this funding of food, the environment and food security. But understanding what our role within that was the sobering part, and understanding the position of what we have and how it influences others in around the world. And a conversation we often had was that connection to the consumer and understanding how we relate to our consumer. And although sometimes it feels like a challenge, it was trying to understand what we could do to better understand that and share our experiences and our understanding of how to produce food, perhaps sometimes better, but also get a position from our consumer that we can relate to. And then America, we met senators and they told us about how they were behind family farming, but then in the reality is things are hard across there as well, and 89% of American farms are family businesses earning less than $10,000 a year, and many people are out subsidizing that production with off-farm income. And that was a reality that we found everywhere. And how do we change that picture, and what can we do? Unfortunately, much of my travels just shook up more questions, but it was perhaps now, how do we find some of those answers, and who should we be asking those questions? How can farming be sustainable, and how do we make sure that food production doesn't rely on off-farm income? And what do we do? And I'll pass that question on to you right there, because we have to work together to change that and see what we can do to make a difference. So it's a really short run through of my Global Focus program, but what did I learn and what did I get? I felt that I started to understand that we have to start with our consumer, and that's where everything starts, no matter where you are. If we were again in the Philippines and small scale farmers producing rice in the paddies, we need to know where it's going to. We need to know why we're producing it and what impact it'll have to the person that ultimately pays for it. It's not an individual's responsibility to feed the world. We really dug into this idea of how do we change things, and it can't be one person that changes it, but it's how can I be part of changing it. So I can't feed the world, but I can hopefully be part of change. It's not all about potatoes, so that's a hard one for me to say, but it's not all about potatoes. And I used to think that rice and pasta was the enemy, and it's not at all. I can learn so much about whether it's breeding techniques or it's understanding your market or it's product development. There's something everywhere that I can learn from, and I have to remember to step out and bring stuff back as opposed to just always starting with my potatoes. I learned a lot next about asking questions, and those 10 people that I travelled with and their different perspectives, those different questions that they wanted to ask, really helped me understand how do I get to the bottom of the things that I want to understand. So that really changed. I used to go direct into, what's the nutrition behind this? What's the cultivation? Get into the detail. And actually, sometimes I needed to understand, where's the funding coming from? How does this impact the soil? And these were all questions that were coming from my peers as we travelled around, and they kind of left them all with me. Then there's always lots more to learn. And again, I've said that there's more to learn. It's left me with a lot more questions than answers, but it's certainly, it's filled me full of wanting to learn more. And I think that what everybody will tell you that Nuffield's done that. It's just, it gives you this hunger to ask more questions and learn more. And I suppose finally, it's friends for life, people I can go to and ask stuff. As I say, in Brazil, if it's in Australia, New Zealand, we regularly catch up and talk about how did we get through COVID, what's that doing to our markets, what's happening in agriculture, and also just what's happening in each other's lives. And it's wonderful. It's an amazing opportunity to meet people and be part of something that's really special. So that's the end of my presentation. I did travel to some other places, but I'll not share with you today. If you want to know more about Nuffield, do get in touch. I'm always here, like send me an email, ask me about it. Don't not apply because you think you've not got a question. It's an amazing opportunity. And you can read all the reports online as well. And as I say, it was the Highland show that started this for me. So go along to things that you don't expect to get something from when you find out amazing stuff. So I hope you have a great day at the Highland show, and thank you for listening.